Be that as it may, I've learned to pick the battles I think I can win. And with Miss Johnson, I know I can't win because I have learned I can be happy or I can be right. I choose to be happy. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Stepping Stones to Your Success. This is Garland, and tonight we're going to go into critical management skill number 36, which is tradition is important. However, as times change, it should not get in the way of our common sense. I'm the first to say that I value and love tradition. Traditions are the cornerstones of our martial arts organization and our country. We must relook and completely understand the original purpose of those traditions. Then as needed, we should consider enhancing those traditions and or creating new ones in order to leave this world better than we found it. Now folks, the following quick story here helps me to express this point even deeper. So last Christmas, Bridget was preparing for Christmas dinner. Now I said, I ain't got nothing to do, so I'll go ahead and help you. And I noticed as she broke out the ham, she cut both ends off the ham before she put it in the oven. And I asked her, I said, why do you do that? Seems like a waste of some good ham there. She says, it's the law, it's tradition, it's the way my mother taught me. I said, okay, sorry, didn't know. And it just so happened that on that evening, Miss Watkins, which is Bridget's mother, came over for a Christmas dinner. And as we're sitting around Christmas dinner, I asked Miss Watkins, I says, you know what, I just got to ask. I noticed that Miss Johnson, or Bridget, cut off both ends of the hams before she put it in the oven. She said she learned that from you. And I was curious, why do you cut off both ends of the ham, Miss Watkins? Says, well, it's the law, it's tradition, it's the way my mother taught me. I said, okay, just thought I'd ask. And it just so happened, as tradition in our family, we call all the in-laws after dinner, and we just check on them and wish them Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and it's just a kind of a thing we do. So just so happens we was calling Miss Gray that evening. Now Miss Gray is Miss Watkins' mom, and she's in California, San Diego, and I called her and got her on the phone and says, Miss Gray, how you doing? How you feeling? How's your health? Are you behaving? And it says, Miss Gray, it's so good to hear your voice, but there's one thing that's bothering me a little bit, and I just got to find out the answer to it, so I just got to ask. I noticed that Bridget cuts off both ends of the ham before she puts it in the oven. And I asked her, how come you do that? And she says, it's the law, it's tradition, it's the way my mother taught me. I asked Miss Watkins the same question. She told me the same answer. It's the law, it's tradition, it's the way my mother taught me. So Miss Gray, I got to understand, why do you cut off both ends of the ham? And she paused a little bit, and she says, well, I don't know why the other two are doing it, but I had a small oven, and I didn't have a choice. I had to cut off both ends of the ham in order to put it in the oven. And I said, okay, that makes good sense to me. Now I understand. And I look at Miss Watkins, and I look at Miss Johnson, and I says, well, I'm not changing. I'm still cutting off both ends of the ham. They both said that in unison. And I said, okay. Be that as it may, whatever floats your boat, we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, but to this day, I think it's still a waste of a good part of the ham. That's just me talking. Okay, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. My point is this, y'all. Tradition has its place, but we also need to find out what is the original origin of that tradition and see if it still makes sense for us to do it. And in this case, it may not make sense for us to do it, but in order to keep peace in the family, by gosh, I'm going to go ahead and let Bridget cut off both ends of that ham. That brings us back to full circle to critical management skill number 36, which is tradition is important. However, as times change, it should not get in the way of common sense. Be that as it may, I've learned to pick the battles I think I can win. And with Miss Johnson, I know I can't win because I have learned I can be happy or I can be right. I choose to be happy. Have a wonderful night. All the best to your family, and we'll be back to you real soon.